2, 1.
Lasers off.
Bomb's gone. Bomb's gone.
Looking good.
10 seconds.
Shell 4-1, I've got a tally though. I think that's wedged to the south.
4, 3, 2,
My position
1.
for about 10
Should
miles.
be impact.
Oh, yes! You destroyed that thing bigger than Dallas.
For the generals, the only reason to place guns on an airplane was to protect the reconnaissance aircraft. But for the pilots and observers, it was a means to have a go at the other fellow. The first recorded aerial victory occurred on October 5, 1914, when a French pusher aircraft downed a German aviatic. For the most part, firing pistols and flares had limited effect on a foe traveling at 90 miles an hour. Mounting machine guns on their aircraft would change all that. Although the idea of mounting a machine gun in the nose of an airplane to fire forward through the propeller had been conceived before the war, only the French had ordered such aircraft into production. It was not until April 1915 when Frenchman Roland Garros shot down 3 German aircraft, and that the era of planes with a dedicated gun had begun. The French aircraft was equipped with a machine gun on the nose and steel deflector plates on the propeller blades to prevent the bullets from shooting off the blades. Reaching 5 victories and thereby becoming the world's first ace, Garros was forced down and taken prisoner when he shot off his own prop. The Germans had already come to the sensible conclusion that deflector plates were only an interim solution. They decided that the only real solution lay with an effective synchronized machine gun. Dutch designer Anthony Fokker made aerial combat possible when he created a propeller interrupter that allowed a forward-mounted machine gun to be placed on a German Eindecker monoplane, thus creating the first true fighter plane. When originally conceived, the Fokker E-type monoplane was not designed for offensive air combat, but simply as an escort for reconnaissance aircraft. It was when such men as Boelke, Immelman, and Kastner came to fly the new Scout that they appreciated the supreme advantage of the synchronized gun as an offensive weapon. They quickly mastered the basic skills necessary to stalk and shoot down unsuspecting French and English pilots. It was so effective and took such a horrific toll on Allied aircraft that the British called it the Fokker Scourge. By 1916, fighter planes were being grouped in squadrons as tactics were developed for fighting formations, and a new breed of warrior was born. The fighter pilot. When Germany developed its first true fighter plane, it was logical that they would put the controls in the hands of the fatherland's best pilots. Max Immelman and Oswald Boelke, as members of Flight Section 62, were among the first pilots to receive the Fokker Eindecker, and they used it to deadly effect. The great Max Immelman's legend was confused and contradictory even during the war. A fierce fighter pilot, dubbed the Eagle of Lille by his opponents, he was a mama's boy whose mother regularly sent him chocolates. Even his death remains clouded in conflicting and self-serving claims. When the war broke out in 1914, 24-year-old Max requested the aviation service. His record as a pilot trainee is unclear. Some sources say he was a poor student. Others describe him as a natural. Initially, he flew the mail and supplies to the German airdromes, but was soon assigned to piloting photo reconnaissance aircraft. On June 3, 1915, while on patrol along the Western Front, he was shot down by a French pilot. He managed to land his crippled aircraft safely behind German lines. For saving his plane, he was decorated with the Iron Cross, second class. When the Eindecker reached the front, Immelman and fellow pilot Oswald Boelke were given a chance with the revolutionary new weapons. On August 1, 10 British BE-2Cs bombed the Duol aerodrome. Boelke and Immelman went after the departing Englishman, but Boelke's gun jammed after he had fired a few rounds. He landed to fix it and saw Immelman attack the BE-2s. Immelman put his fragile fighter into a dive and fired, first at one plane and then another. One started into a steep glide, and Immelman tailed it all the way to the ground. His gunfire had broken the pilot's elbow and forced him to land. On the ground, Immelman approached the British pilot. They shook hands, and Immelman informed the Englishman that he was a prisoner. For this exploit, Max received the Iron Cross, First Class. In the fall of 1915, Immelman and Boelke continued to carry on a friendly rivalry, matching each other victory for victory. Neither was a fancy flyer. Immelman wrote, "I do not employ tricks when I attack." On January 12th, Immelman was the first pilot to be awarded the Pour le Mérite, Germany's highest military honor. The medal became colloquially known as the Blue Max in the German Air Service in honor of Immelman. On June 18, Immelman engaged the FE-2Bs of RFC Squadron 25. According to British accounts, gunfire from an FE-2, piloted by Lieutenant G.R. McCubbin and gunned by Corporal J.H. Waller, hit Immelman's Fokker and it spiraled into the ground. Perhaps the notion that a lowly two-seater FE-2 had brought down their leading ace, the Germans announced that he had been downed by anti-aircraft fire. This explanation also suited Tony Fokker, who filed a report noting that the fuselage had been shot in two by shrapnel fire. Other sources, including Max's brother Franz, blamed the interrupter gear and claimed that amongst the wreckage, his propeller had been found shot away right in line with his own guns. Most authorities concur with this explanation, but like so many events of World War I's aerial combat, the death of Max Immelman remains obscured by conflicting reports and uncertainty. Immelman's squadron mate, Oswald Boelke, is considered to be the father of the dogfight. Boelke envisioned the grouping of hand-picked pilots in fighter squadrons, or Jadstaffeln. Boelke was born in 1891, son of a schoolteacher in Halle, Germany. Both studious and athletic as a youth, Oswald excelled at mathematics and physics, and also took up swimming, tennis, rowing, and gymnastics. Imbued with German nationalism and militarism from his father, at the age of 13, young Oswald took the outrageous step of writing Kaiser Wilhelm directly for an appointment to military school. He joined the military and at Darmstadt first encountered the aviation branch, which he joined as an NCO pilot. His older brother Wilhelm also joined the aviation service as an NCO observer. In those early days, observers had more status than pilots, who were likened to mere chauffeurs. Both were decorated in the first year of the war. In early 1915, Oswald Boelke was assigned to the newly formed Aviation Section 62 at Dobritz. It was here that Tony Fokker first demonstrated his first E-1 monoplane, Eindecker, equipped with a fixed Spandau machine gun. While flying the Fokker monoplane, Boelke downed 5 enemy aircraft by the end of 1915. By August of 1916, the good times were over for the German pilots. The Fokker scourge no longer dominated the skies over the Western Front. The French streamlined Nieuport 11 and the British pusher biplanes were giving the Germans trouble, and Boelke began to focus on tactics to counter them: accurate gunnery, tight formations, and staying within the German lines. In September 1916, Boelke's dream of a superstar squadron was granted. He was given command of a new fighter squadron, Jasta II. Even while assuming new administrative duties, Boelke shot down 11 British planes in September. As the leader of Jasta II, he passed his knowledge on to many of Germany's greatest flyers, including Manfred von Richthofen. Boelke and his pilots used numbers and tactics rather than individual skill to overwhelm their foe. Jasta II only flew in large, well-organized formations, dubbed circuses. Any Allied plane that came within their section of the sky was doomed. Boelke cared little for his personal record. What he cared about was making sure his young pilots got the enemy in their gun sights and came home alive. Boelke set down his principles for combat, known as Boelke's Dicta. He taught that pilots should attack from behind and out of the sun, fire only at close range, and when attacked from above, turn and face the enemy. In the fall of 1916, he shot down 21 Allied aircraft in 2 months, increasing his total to 40. But like Immelman before him, his luck ran out on October 28, 1916. Boelke set out for his 6th sortie of the day. Before taking off, Boelke, rushing to get ready, failed to properly strap on his safety belt. Flying with him were his 2 best pilots, Manfred von Richthofen and Erwin Bohm, and 3 others. During a fierce dogfight, he collided with another German aircraft and spiraled to Earth and his death. Boelke made a relatively soft crash landing. The impact seemed survivable. However, his lap belt didn't restrain him, and he never wore a helmet when he flew. The great Oswald Boelke was dead at age 25. British flyers that were once his prey honored their enemy by dropping a wreath at his burial site inscribed, "To the memory of Captain Boelke, our brave and chivalrous foe." These young men were part of a rare breed, soldiers in history's bloodiest war, who fought one-on-one far above the stench and carnage in the trenches below. Britain's Prime Minister, David Lloyd George, told a wartime audience that airmen were the knighthood of the war, without fear and without reproach. That sense of chivalry was summed up by one British flyer in a letter home.
I hate to shoot a Hun down without him seeing me. Although this method is in accordance with my doctrine, it is against what little sporting instincts I have left. James McCudden, Royal Flying Corps.
But not all aces spent time looking for skilled opponents. Edward Manock once chanced upon 6 German aircraft on a training flight. He shot down the instructor and then picked off the 5 defenseless students one by one. There were many brave aces on both sides during the Great War, but the greatest hunter of the skies was a charming and humorous Prussian, known by his admiring foes simply as the Red Baron.
Fight on and fly, on to the last drop of blood and the last drop of fuel, to the last beat of the heart. Manfred von Richthofen.
Baron Manfred von Richthofen transferred from the Prussian cavalry to the air service in 1915. Having flown as an observer and a bomber pilot in the East, he was chosen by Boelke to join his Jasta in France. Eventually, he was given command of Jasta 11. Because of its garishly colored machines, the British soon christened the unit Richthofen's Flying Circus. Having survived a head wound during a dogfight in July 1917, Richthofen was pressured by his superiors to withdraw from combat. The High Command had reason to be concerned about their heroic ace. The young Baron was so beloved by the German people that it was felt by the Kaiser that his death would be a crushing blow to German morale. In spite of this concern, During the 1918 spring offensive, he climbed back into the cockpit to lead his men into battle. Von Richthofen's last victim was British Second Lieutenant D.E. Lewis. On April 20th, 1918, Lewis was on patrol with his squadron over the German front when they encountered Jasta II. As the Germans dove on the British formation, Lewis banked his Sopwith and found himself face to face with the Red Baron. Lewis tried to maneuver his Sopwith Camel out of Richthofen's line of fire, but the German's trigger finger was just too fast. The blaze of machine gun fire tore into the Camel's reserve fuel tank. Lewis hit the ground at 60 miles an hour, but was unhurt. As he climbed from his wreck, he saw Richthofen's triplane fly by overhead. Lewis thought he was going to be strafed, but instead, Richthofen flew by, waving cheerfully. On April 21, the Red Baron's luck ran out when he was shot through the heart while pursuing a British Sop flying low behind Allied lines. Whether he was shot by an Australian machine gun or Canadian Roy Brown is still debated. His bright red triplane came down behind British lines. Richthofen's body was removed from the cockpit and buried with full military honors by the enemy he terrorized. His final victory total was 80 Allied aircraft destroyed. No other pilot would reach that total until World War II. No non-German has come close to that total even today. Hermann Göring began the war serving with an infantry regiment. He was hospitalized with rheumatism, resulting from the damp of trench warfare. While he was recovering, his friend Bruno Lorzer convinced him to transfer to the air service. In February 1917, he joined Jagdstaffel 26. He now scored steadily until in May 1917, he got his first command, Jasta 27. Serving with Jastas 5, 26, and 27, he claimed 21 air victories. On July 7, 1918, after the death of Wilhelm Reinhard, the successor of the Red Baron, he was made commander of the famed flying circus Jagdgeschwader 1. During the war, Göring had, through his generous treatment, made a friend of his prisoner of war, Captain Frank Beaumont, a Royal Flying Corps pilot. It was part of Göring's creed to admire a good enemy, and he did his best to keep Captain Beaumont from being taken over by the Army. Göring finished the war with 22 confirmed kills. At the war's end, Göring was ordered to surrender the planes of his squadron to the Allies. In December 1918, Göring and his fellow pilots intentionally wrecked the planes on landing. Typical for the political climate of the day, he was not arrested or even officially reprimanded for his action. A few aces died a hero's death. One was German ace Werner Voss. Voss was a friend and rival of Manfred von Richthofen. Like most of the German aces, he began his career flying observation aircraft. He then transferred to scout aircraft and was posted to Oswald Boeke's Jasta II, where he flew as Manfred von Richthofen's wingman. Voss scored his first victory at the age of 18 on November 27, 1916. He was credited with 38 confirmed victories in his Albatros D-3 scout aircraft, decorated with a swastika and heart motifs for good luck. Voss was known as a loner and an inspirational squadron leader. Being a loner is what led to his death. On September 23, 1917, Voss, flying alone in his pale blue Fokker, was attacked by an entire flight of SE-5s led by British ace James McCudden. As the SE-5s dived, he spun on his tail to face them.
By now, the German triplane was in the middle of our formation, and its handling was wonderful to behold. The pilot seemed to be firing at all of us simultaneously, and although I got behind him a second time, I could hardly hold him in my sights. James McCudden, British Royal Flying Corps.
2 British machines went down in the fight, but then the Germans' luck ran out. Arthur Davids latched onto his tail and raked the triplane with repeated bursts of fire. The aircraft hit the ground and disappeared into 1,000 pieces. No matter how they died, to a generation, they were the equivalent of the Knights of the Round Table. The best fighter pilots on both sides were far from immune from the pressures of war. Before they died, and most of them did die, many were harrowed men from too many hours in the air. Some drove themselves beyond human limits. Georges Guynemer was France's most beloved ace. The 21-year-old weighed less than 100 pounds. Guynemer was working as a janitor at a training field outside of Paris. Stricken with TB, he fought to get into the cockpit. When he finally got his chance, he proved to have outstanding aerial skills and was an excellent marksman. Between 1915 and the summer of 1917, Guynemer destroyed 54 aircraft, but the war was taking its toll on the sickly youth. The great French ace Guynemer feared that if he withdrew from combat, people would say it was because he had won all the awards. He was unfit, physically ill, racked by paranoia and insomnia, yet he died while flying. Like a fabled warrior legend, Guynemer would vanish on a mission. Not a trace of him or the aircraft was ever found. Paul-René Fonck was the Allies' most successful fighter pilot of World War I, and second only to Manfred von Richthofen. A brilliant shooter rather than an accomplished pilot, Fonck claimed 6 victories in a single day twice, flying his SPAD-13. Yet for all his skill and success, Fonck never captured the heart of the French public as Guynemer had. Fonck was acidic and withdrawn. Instead of drinking or socializing with the other pilots, he planned his flying missions and tactics, ironed his uniforms, and stayed physically fit through calisthenics. He seemed to overcompensate for his shyness by constantly mentioning his exploits. As a result, he seemed distant, arrogant, even abrasive. Following the armistice, Fonck worked as a racing and demonstration pilot. His record of working with the Vichy government following the fall of France in June 1940 would later besmirch his reputation. The top ace of the British Empire was William Avery Bishop. He began his flying career as an observer. In mid-1916, he put in for pilot training. The war was using up flyers at a prodigious rate, and he was accepted. Not a great pilot, he spent the latter part of 1916 flying anti-Zeppelin patrols over England. Bishop was involved in one of the few recorded duels between great aces of the war. In mid-1917, Bishop's squadron was flying a midday patrol when they spotted 5 albatrosses. As Bishop maneuvered to get behind these, 4 more red-painted albatrosses appeared, von Richthofen's planes. Bishop met the new challengers and all began firing, twisting, turning, and struggling to gain an advantage. Richthofen moved out of the melee, setting up a duel with the Canadian ace. Bishop briefly got the Red Baron in his sights, but his gun jammed. Von Richthofen turned, looked around. Bishop unjammed his machine gun and placed several bullets in the fuselage of the Red Albatross. But the German ace flew masterfully, twisting, banking, and never offering Bishop a clear shot. When 4 Sopwith triplanes from an English naval unit appeared, the Germans took off. With several bullet holes in his aircraft, Bishop remarked, "Close shave, but a wonderful soul-stirring fight." The successes of Bishop and his blue-nosed aircraft were noticed on the German side, and they began referring to him as Hell's Handmaiden. By the end of the war, he had claimed some 72 air victories,